we're building a Palantir with 0 employees, basically. We transform that data into this game that is called the bird game. So basically, we replace the currency by flying birds. It allows us to incentivize them on the upside. So every time a customer is pinging your model at Crunch, you're going to get rewarded for that.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the DeFi Podcast. I'm your host, Bill, and joined as always by a couple of my co-hosts, Rhett and JF this week. And we're also joined by a special guest, Jean Herelle. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Jean is the co-founder of Crunch DAO. He has a strong background in data science and quant finance, and he's been helping to lead Crunch DAO, which is my understanding is it's a decentralized research community where data scientists compete to build the best predictive AI models for a variety of use cases. We talk about AI and crypto on this podcast periodically, and to be honest, this was one of the more unique approaches that we've seen at the intersection of kind of AI and crypto. So we're really interested to chat with you, Jean, and it's great to have you on. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, Bill. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure. Our pleasure. Okay, but before we jump into to Crunch DAO, let's first just do a quick market update. Last week when we recorded on Thursday, I think that was one day after, so-called Liberation Day, and the market was already down a ton, like 5 or 6%. And it's been an absolute, roller coaster ride since then. Friday, the equity markets continued to tank, but crypto actually held up pretty well, which was kind of fun to see as people who are in crypto. But that did not continue over the weekend. Over the weekend, the only risk asset people could sell was really crypto. So everything tanked. Monday was brutal. Yesterday was terrible until, so it was basically terrible all week until yesterday. Trump actually delayed the tariffs by 90 days. And we had a huge intraday rally of something like 8 or 9%. And then today we're back down again. So it's been like absolutely incredible, volatile week. I'm a bit exhausted watching equity markets. How are you guys feeling about all the tariff news?
I mean, Bill, you have to be about the violence of the chart. You have to stay away. Sometimes it's good, to have a drink, go to the beach, do some sports, do something else, or bet you have a better hedge. It's been violent, but if you have a proper hedge, that kind of volatility is actually kind of interesting. So on the side of Crunch, it's been an interesting time for sure.
Nice. It's been kind of crazy. Probably my favorite thing that's happened in the last week is Navarro, who's like the tariff lover in the Trump admin, and Elon Musk have been fighting. Elon was so insulting in a tweet that I saw a couple of days ago, where he said he apologized to the BRICS for comparing Navarro to a bag of bricks in intelligence, which I thought was hilarious. I'm still kind of I'm kind of curious to see how this plays out. A point that Musk actually made, and a lot of others have made, is like, ideal is if the Trump admin can go and negotiate bilateral low tariffs across the board and not just slap fat tariffs on everyone. And so if what ends up happening is the US and the EU both reduce their trade barriers on each other, then that's a great outcome. I think that's my view as well. I share that view with a lot of people, which is that, like, ideally we want, low trade barriers and then a couple of exceptions for like national defense, critical industries, and you can kind of set those aside. So I don't know how it plays out exactly. Supposedly there's some negotiations taking place. The pause is, I think, welcome for the markets.
I think the most interesting thing to me has been just watching people just hammer the administration for creating all this craziness. And it's happening from people who have never run businesses, or like, let's say, like the super liberal type of person who's never run a business and has sort of always worked for a big organization, doesn't know anything about negotiation. But it's also happening from people who have always been let's say, equity traders, who have never also run an organization, have never had to negotiate something. And there's on completely both sides of the aisle, people are like, this is crazy. They're just so incompetent. They're doing all these crazy things. It's obviously, when you negotiate something, you need to sort of wipe the table clean. You need to anchor the deal that you want towards the extreme side, to make the deal space wider. And this is like in basic negotiations. I mean, that's what running a business feels like. It is violent. And it's just interesting to watch just everyone who's never done that completely misunderstand it on all sides of the aisle. That's my sort of big takeaway.
Yeah, dude, definitely. There's a bunch of people in the peanut gallery who, are just jumping at the first opportunity for the equity market to tank to blame, just like there's a certain narrative I think journalists, especially finance journalists, want to tell about Trump. And as soon as the equity market's down, they're like, oh, everything is going to be ruined. I spoke to a guy, I trained at this academy in New York, and there's a lot of finance guys there. And one guy worked at a very famous hedge fund, and he has known in the past this guy, Scott Bessent, who's now the Treasury Secretary. And what his, the scuttlebutt is basically that what the U.S. is trying to do, what the administration is trying to do, and this makes sense to me, is they're trying to create a truly free trade U.S. country bloc. So like a U.S. bloc of nations where there's no tariffs between anyone or minimal tariffs between everyone. And, the only country that, definitely would not join such a trade bloc would be China. So, this is like a attempt to essentially isolate China and, fix a lot of their, allegedly bad behavior in terms of trade and IP theft and all these things. And, is it going to work? I don't know if it's going to work or not, but the thing I keep coming back to is like, this is totally self-inflicted. Trump and his administration announced the tariffs and surprised the whole market. And as we saw with yesterday's price action, as soon as he pushed off the tariffs, like the market rallied like crazy. So at any point, whether he blinks and just totally backs off or he accomplishes his goals, it feels like they can just pull back on the tariffs and the equity markets can go back to where they were before, assuming there's not some sort of an accident in the financial system, which is, I think, definitely something to worry about. But I'm, of course, cautiously optimistic, but I'm trying to also not like shill my politics. So it's a little bit, I'm like trying to be aware of my own bias and manage my book. It's been a harrowing last week. Not fun.
Coming from a management consulting where I used to have clients who actually would produce things in China. And, you get told stories like, we'll order 100,000 SKUs of our unique product that we've designed in-house here in Canada or in the US. And what they'll do is they'll run the production of 100,000 and they'll do another 100,000 without your label on it, right? But it's like your product and they're going to now sell that under some other brand. And that's like normal, this has been happening for 20 years. And it's, I think, about time that like some administration starts fighting this. It's completely ridiculous, actually.
Okay, well, listen, there's a handful of other topics that we were planning on discussing today, just like what's happening in crypto the last week. But then I started to do the deep dive into Crunch DAO, Gene. And to be honest, like there's a lot there. So instead of, discussing some of the more crypto-centric topics, we're going to dive right into your project. So first, like before I just gab on about it, I'd love to hear like how you ended up working on Crunch DAO. And just at a high, I have a whole list of questions, but just at a high level, how do you describe Crunch DAO to someone who's never heard of it before? What does it do?
So the best analogy that I like to use is we're building a Palantir with 0 employees, basically. So Crunch is building algorithm for some of the largest institutions like Palantir is doing. We're building an AI system, we're building models, but we have this army of data scientists, 8,000 people all over the planet, about 1,200 PhD that come on the platform and that are building these models for our customers. So we kind of create this world where that couldn't talk before between institutions on one side that have data that they are not used to share. And on the other side, thousands of researchers and thousands of people that used to work on the open source and that can finally find a place where they find interesting data to crunch on. And they have also this ability of monetizing their knowledge and their IP outside of the common, of the common ways that kind of exist for them. So in a nutshell, we are between black waters of mathematics with thousands of mathematicians around the world and a Palantir with 0 employees. That's kind of the best analogies, I think, for Crunch. And like Palantir, not a lot of people really understand what we do because we do things at the edge of AIs and at this edge of systems. And it goes even further. The people that are working on the platform don't know what they are really doing neither because they cannot understand the data. So I don't know if you look at Severance, if you guys have been watching the show, but the guys are have a work that actually don't really make any sense, right? They just on the computers and they put stuff in box, and for them it doesn't really make sense. So that's called differential privacy, and that's what Crunch is doing. So let me give you a concrete example. We work for one of the largest investment banks in Australia, and we work on forex for them. We cannot share the data that they gave us, but we transform that data into this game that is called the bird game. So the data scientists on the birds game, the flying bird game. So basically, we replace the currency by flying birds, doves and hawks that are chasing each other. And our data scientists on the platform have to predict where the birds are going. But actually, what they're predicting is where different currencies are going on the live stream. And by doing this abstraction, finally, the institution can share data that they couldn't share before. We create this severance game with people all over the planet, and that actually powers real use case.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Rhett, before you jump in, because I know I'm going to ask the mid curve, left curve questions, and then we can go to your big brain questions. Okay, so like my understanding is like, if I open up, ChatGPT or Grok or Perplexity or any of these platforms, right? I ask it a question, and it does some sort of complicated algorithm, whether it's a neural network or like these transformers. I don't really understand this terminology. All I know is that there's some complicated algorithm that's been trained on a huge data set, and it gives me an answer that it thinks I'm going to like. But the questions I'm asking, like my experience is when I use something like ChatGPT, the questions that I get good answers to are questions that probably a whole bunch of people have asked before. Like there's a bunch of good data about it out there, right? But if you're a hedge fund trying to predict FX prices, or like in some of your documentation, you talk about how there's like questions being asked about cancer research and things like that. Like the questions that you guys are trying to help people answer are more specific, difficult questions that maybe no one has answered before, right? So if I was at a hedge fund or I was at a hospital or a research facility, like I could potentially try to go use these new machine learning breakthroughs to answer the questions myself, but it would be super expensive. Why? Because I have to go hire some machine learning engineers, right? I have to like bring them to my location. I have to give them the data that maybe only I have access to. And, then they have to work for years, and, it's like this huge cost. And then when I was reading the documentation about Crunch DAO, it kind of felt like it was somewhere in between. Like you don't have a specific question that a ChatGPT could answer. It's a deeper question, but you don't want to go build out a huge team. So instead you rely on this kind of expert network of thousands of, machine learning, builders and PhDs. Is this do I have the right framework for what this is?
Yeah, absolutely. This is, you're totally right. I think people have, when we talk about AI and machine learning, the first things that come to mind today are large language models, but they are just one part of the overall family, right? For example, large language model cannot quantify uncertainties. If you need to quantify a number, you need to predict a number. They are not made for that. They're made for language, right? So as soon as you're going to try to quantify things, it's going to be a bit more difficult. You're going to use other families of models like computer vision algorithm. If there is an image that you need to see, you're going to use a rankers algorithm like what you have in Amazon, Netflix, and basically everywhere on the web today. You will use decision trees in the case of trying to figure out what is the best numbers to output outside of things. So LLMs are creating this amazing interface between like human and machine, and are this amazing database as well of all this knowledge, this written knowledge out there, and are really changing the way we interacting with machines and etc. But you still need these building blocks behind this more statistical approach to answer a question. And so what we're going to see in the future is that LLMs, when you're going to ask your question, then the LLM is going to look for this building block, implement it quickly with a Python script eventually, pipe some data, and then do your inference and answer what you're expecting for. But if this building block doesn't exist, that's just what you mentioned. But if nobody already worked on it, or second case scenario, if you are in a very competitive landscape like on the market, and if someone is better than you, is taking the opportunity, then in that case, you will try to have the best possible solution, or you try to develop things. How do you have the best solution? Then you put the statistics on your side. The statistics of a team of 4 engineers internally, that these 4 engineers will come with the best solution on the market is pretty low compared to 8,000 people that are competing day and night and pushing codes, and always coming with the latest technologies and trying to, I get that bounty. So that's really what our customer are coming for, is either for an incremental improvement that means a lot of money for them because it's quite a deployment to put in place, right? We're not going to do that to recognize cat from dogs because first it's already solved and nobody really cares. So we talk about these very large markets, lot at stakes in being wrong. Every error is costing you a lot of money, or costing lives, or costing had a very high stakes kind of output. And yeah, Crunch is allowing companies that also have no internal team to start directly on the community, right? So this is what we try to predict. This is what can move the needle for a business. How can I predict it? Should I hire 10 people internally? Well, if you don't have the culture, you don't have the bias, you don't have the take, etc., it's very hard. And that's, by the way, one of the conclusions of Palantir, that implement a CRM at first. So when they come into a company, first things they do is they implement a CRM because they need to pipe all this data and make sure they kind of have enough infrastructure to build better AI on top of it. And this is it's kind of like a data management, and everything that the company is going to do is going to be piped into this system, right? So large databases and etc. that allows to access this information in a very easy way. Let's say you have 200,000 cameras that are monitoring a site. How do you pipe this data and store this data such that it's accessible and can be treated in real time and fast? And so if a company never implemented these kind of things and want to get into AI and start to gather data, it's going to be a lot of work. Whereas with Crunch, they can directly jump in, avoid all these hires, and access thousands of people all over the planet. And what's funny is that we've been actually confirming that by outperforming all our customers since day one. And some of our customers have teams with 300 researchers internally, like the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority Lab here. And so this is, how we kind of catch our customers, but just run a data set on a platform, what is critical to your business, and we're going to add to that for sure.
That's awesome. That's a really good data point. So is there a specific type of problem or like a subset of problems that you guys tend to focus on? So like obviously like the term like data science or model or things like that can be really broad. Bill referenced the LLMs, but and then you obviously alluded to there's all kinds of different things like I think you mentioned FX is a lot of it like, finance type problems, like, or what sorts of things do you see the most on your platform so far?
Well, for the moment, we have a very strong market fit with financial institutions, bank, hedge funds, asset managers of any kind, whatever the assets, for two reasons. Number one, these companies are already data mature. And, a lot of people are talking to you about LLMs and etc. But some companies are not even to the level of maturity to implement, basic algorithmic, they don't have database, they don't monitor well what they're doing. Their data is all over the place. And so what happened in finance is that they are super mature on that front. They started to implement ML algorithm in the 90s. They pushed the technologies actually forward. So they know very well what this increment mean. And they already have the benchmark internally for us to anchor our proof of concepts that we've been building for the last 3 years. We knew what we were competing against. Without in other field, it will be more complex to say, okay, we are beating, the traditional way of building models. And that's really what we're fighting against, right? Crunch is coming with this new concept where instead of working with an internal team of 4 people, just embrace the capacity of the community of thousands of machine learning engineers, data scientists, astrophysicists, mathematicians all over the planet to come with solutions that will completely change your business and make it a leader eventually if you're in this competitive space.
So can I pause? Sorry, I'm just because it's coming up, I'm going to forget that. So right now, the thousands of people that you have connected to the network, how did you connect? Like, how did you bring them into your circle? And what's like right now, what happens? Hedge fund comes to you and says, hey, like, I want you to help predict FX prices over some time horizon. So like, how does the whole process work right now? Does it like a proposal get sent out to these thousands and some of them sign up to work on it? Or how does this competition piece work?
So for the moment, it's quite, so we are all over, I'm spending a lot of time between some of the major cities that have these financial institutions, and I meet with hedge fund portfolio managers and all these institutions, and I'm kind of, gathering what they are needed and what they always need. If you ask if a company has one metric, one prediction that could totally change the business, everybody has one. What could make your business more successful? What should you predict? For some people, it's meteorology. For some people, it's the speed of the wind. Let's say you are operating an offshore eolian field, and there is hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, that are invested in the sea. You need to know exactly what's going to be the speed of the wind at that time. Or let's say you operate this large energy grid for electricity. Well, it happens that the solar activity is impacting how you store energy. Predicting that can save you millions as well. So these time series are everywhere. Now, in finance, asset managers have these metrics that you call sometimes factors, or you call sometimes investment strategies. They look at things, in particular, your macro traders, you're going to look at the tariff that we just mentioned. You're going to look at, what's the likelihood of increase of rates in these countries, especially if it's an exporter or an importer of the commodities that you're trading and this kind of thing. So we sit with these people, we discuss what they will really need to predict. And then we put a data set together. The core team is working on this. And once we have a data set together, we run what's called a rally. So a rally on the platform is a 3-week short test of the data. And we have some of the best people that are triggered at that moment to come. It's kind of a private initiative. And the best people are testing the data. We make sure that things work well, that we will add value. Then we come back to the customer. We can show our early results. And from that point, we upload the data set for a live 6 months to 1 year gathering of models. Once we gather these models, we actually gather code. Right? We don't gather predictions. So people, the crunchers, are writing codes in Python. The code is pushed on the platform, and then Crunch can operate all these pieces of code every time a customer is pinging our API. And so we become this all-in-one for a customer. It's just, okay, we need to predict this. And 1 month later, we come with the best possible prediction that you could possibly have, even if you would have hired a lot of people. And we do all that under all the requirements of the industry, the speed, the availability of the systems, and etc. So it's kind of we have this hybrid system that is enabled by Web3, by the way, and that's also a big part of Crunch, and that's how we attract smart people. By the way, it connects to the question, because we need to enforce the protection of the IPs of all these models. Who is controlling the models is an important piece. If you control the data and the models, then you could cut yourself from the community, and that's not attracting the smartest people. So all in one, we have this process where the core team is still very involved, but now we are slowly opening Crunch so it can become a completely permissionless system where anyone will come and push some data on the system, which also ask yourself some question. What kind of people are going to come? What kind of things we want to work on? Do we want to work on weapon systems and etc.? Is that, how do we enforce, the kind of things we want to work on as a community? That's the kind of things we're thinking about.
I guess it could be opt-in. So a couple of questions. Thanks for that. On the kind of data privacy side of things, I liked that example of FX and the bird game, et cetera. So you're predicting one thing and you're kind of predicting something else that you're unaware of. So I was previously a data scientist as well, and overfitting can be this really interesting kind of like pernicious problem where even if you're doing good regularization and cross-validation and yada, yada, you might end up with like these like subtle forms of like overfit models that I've found that like domain expertise can help a lot with. I'm kind of curious what kind of challenges you guys see there and how you deal with them. Is it more on the side of the customer to like, have really good holdout sets or have ultra clean, well-explained data coming in the door, or, is this just like a challenge that you just have to deal with, or, yeah.
Great question. That's a good question, right? Thank you for asking it, because it's exactly what we're solving at Crunch. Overfitting happens where you cannot confront yourself to first reality and different set of opinions. So the way we assess the model is only on live either live market or live events. So when we collect the code, then after the collection of the code, we will run all these codes on data that have never been shared before because it's live data. And for example, with Adialab, 2 years ago, we were testing the model for more than 6 months before being able to determine, who is capable of generating. And with a bit of luck, you will have two market regime on that period. So you'll be able to see who is holding between the regime, and we're talking about tariff currently. And with the Trump administration coming, how does it impact the models that were performing in the past? And what is great when you have 8,000 models compared to one internally is that everybody is learning something different. And we're trying to push people to have different algorithms, right? We have these originality factors that people get rewarded to be good at, because we want to get as diverse set of opinion as possible. So everyone is catching up on something different. And if you do that, then you get more chance to generalize and not overfit to only one market regime, because you have people that are going to, train their model on different factors. So there's this very good image that I love to take, which is from complex system theory, where predicting an avalanche is considered as impossible, right? But because it can be triggered by so many different things. Once, it could be a bird just going on top of that hill. It could be this drop of water. It could be, any small event could trigger that. But if you have enough sensor to actually monitor everything that is happening on that mountain, then you'll get a chance to pick up the important feature there. And so this is what Crunch is kind of implementing by having 8,000 people. Everybody's is incentivized to be original. Everybody comes with a different solution, also come with a different background. When you have mathematicians, for example, love deep neural net, physicists all come with kernel methods. They love it. Then you have these new generations of people that are doing a lot of neural decision trees and etc., more like a Kaggle crowd. And if everybody's using different techniques, if everybody's is incentivized to be original, everybody's looking at different features, and you get a much more diverse field that is actually helping for overfitting, because you don't look at the data or the problem with only one set of bias and one set of features. So I think it's actually one of the best tool you could have against overfitting is like test your model against 8,000 people and see if they come with the same conclusion, and will they overperform. Test your data on and test your model on live data. Obviously, that's the best test.
Cool. Can you talk a little bit about how Crunch intersects with blockchain technology, and maybe how you see the sort of like the future evolution between the two techs?
Well, guys, it's really the key here. So everything is about talent, right? Having a great company, building great models. It's about bringing the best talent in the same room, or not in the same room, but work on the same problem. This happened with the Manhattan Project back then, and we all see that in the Oppenheimer movie. How do you bring everyone in a place where they can collaborate, no matter what their background and no matter, what they've been building before? You just know that they are, top quintile in terms of mathematical capabilities and research capabilities. And so the fact is that these talents are not coming from one country. They are, equally distributed all over the planet. And, the capability of having this worldwide a system to ensure that everyone will be remunerated all over the planet, that anyone can participate no matter its background. It's very important for Crunch. It allows us to bring people first from all over the planet. Second, it allows us to incentivize them on the upside. So every time a customer is pinging your model at Crunch, you're going to get rewarded for that. And you can look on chain for that operation when it happened. It happened right after, not before, because otherwise it would take too much time. But every time someone is calling your model, then you get rewarded. And that's really an important fact, because it means that this model can get into production for the next 10 years, 20 years eventually, so you build that things that now a hedge fund is using or financial institution is using or this biotech is implementing in this software. And now suddenly you receive some kind of royalties every month, thanks to blockchain. And for us, it's a way to really, make sure that the system is fair and the system is auditable and completely open, accessible wherever you are, whenever you are, whatever is your background.
Can I ask, sorry to interrupt, can I ask just a really basic question? You probably get this question all the time, but let's say, Rhett is a data scientist. He's awesome. He knows what he's doing. He picks up some hedge fund request to model out prices of FX in, 5 minutes time or whatever. And he makes an incredible model. He puts it on chain. What keeps mid-curve from me from coming and just copying it, marketing it better, and just essentially usurping whatever, proprietary IP he added on chain?
That's a great question, and it took us time to solve this problem. And so the way to solve until now was non-existent. We had no solution for that. So that's an excellent question. What happened recently is now we just implemented trusted execution environments. So there is a bunch of privacy preserving techniques and a bunch of ways to protect some code that you want to run somewhere. But if you want something at this intersection of blockchain and the capabilities of creating a secure enclave for a piece of code that can only receive data, train, and then resend the data, it's been really moving recently. And I think it's also because of LLMs. LLMs kind of triggers, it's interesting because it kind of triggers for a lot of corporate this issue of privacy again. They're like, okay, I don't want my employee to use ChatGPT. Everything is going inside and, someone is training on our company data and et cetera. That's bad. And by triggering this discussion, then we had this privacy, tools that came back, and now even NVIDIA is producing this kind of tool. So with trusted execution environment, what it is this secure enclave that only you can open. You even have a notebook inside. You can put code inside, and this secure enclave is referenced somewhere. We know its address, and this address is on chain. So basically, what's happening is that we're going on chain to see the address, and then we go ping, all the address of all the TEs that are being deployed with pieces of code. And we've been building that with Fala. Now we come with also another possibilities with MPC, with Archeum. We plan to implement other techniques. Each technique has its good and bad. Some stuff are more secure, some stuff are faster, and et cetera, and et cetera. So we're kind of combining this, and trusted execution environment is the first step we're doing on that direction. And so with trusted execution environment, neither Crunch, neither the company will never be able to look at the piece of code that have been sent by this quant or by these engineers. And he's secure. He knows every time this environment is being called, he knows it's been rewarded, and so it's transparent, fair, and completely anonymous as well, which is also important.
But it's not the case that Rhett, for example, needs to create the TEE, right? It's like he sees a request on the network. He thinks he can provide some expertise. He writes some code, builds a machine learning model. It performs really well. And then he uploads it, and your system somehow puts it in a TEE in a trusted way. I see. Okay. So a machine learning expert's only, the work that they have to do is just their own expertise of writing, of creating a model that has strong predictive capabilities.
Yes, and it's a complete different job. Being able to build a model like that, it's a complete different job than having a model in production. By the way, it's a different job. You have MLOps, ML engineers and researcher. The people that are performing sometimes are, researcher in, bioinformatics, for example, or even medical researches and etc. So those people are really researchers. They are used to write paper, go deep into the theory, and then implement things. But they are not going to be able to, take care as well as we could of the infrastructure. Especially if you want to be industry standard level, you need to go fast. You need to be available. You need to make sure that the code is not going to break. So we take care of all of this. Basically, on the platform, you just have to come. You could even upload a notebook. You don't even have to generate a Python file. But what you have to respect is we have different functions that we can call without seeing your code. For example, we can call the training function. Let's say the customer want to retrain your model because he's seeing features kind of decreasing powers and the feature importance kind of needs to change. So you want to retrain the model because of a regime change or because of feature drifting and these kind of things. He can directly call this train function, or it can call the inference function, which is producing the predictions. So yeah, basically it's seamless. Just push your notebooks, and they can focus on the research. We take care of developing and deployment.
Gotcha. Okay. And so you guys have some finance, applications or finance use cases right now. I read that there's some medical use cases as well. Are there other areas where you're trying to apply this, that you're growing the market? Is there, for example, like, do you do stuff I know you're trying to build the request and answer part on crypto rails, but are there parts of it that are focused on actual like analyzing DeFi and crypto?
So yes, we have a lot of requests on that front. To be honest, we kind of trying. So in this early stage, Crunch is still in an early stage where we're kind of in a private beta, I want to say. So when people come to us and we discuss and we see what's the size of the market, what's the size of the opportunity, and etc. And based on that, we decide, also we have our own expertise, right? And so we kind of look into what it is, and then we deploy. We have some work coming on DeFi. It's part of finance for me, so it's our vertical, and we're going to talk about that very soon. I cannot tell you who, I cannot tell you why for the moment, but yes, some stuff are coming as well.
So I've been following sort of the field of AI for about 10 years, starting with like guys like Rick Kurzweil, and I've been telling people that we're going to have like self-driving cars, like starting 7 years ago, and everyone thought I was crazy. And I guess a lot of normal people still think that's maybe not going to happen. But yeah, I sort of think that like over the next 20 years, we are going to get to something that looks like the singularity. And that might be sort of like Star Trek world where like we don't really need to work. We can work on really like cool things and we have abundance. And just curious if you ascribe to that sort of view of the world and if you have any unusual takes in terms of the future.
I come with a background of statistic, and there is something that is really, really, it's what's happening is just amazing, guys. It's just, I'm working on ML models for like more than 10 years now. And like you, I'm just absolutely amazed by what I see. And what I'm really looking for now that will be amazing is in terms of capability of forecasting. When humans have this, what we call gut feeling, right? We don't know on what features or on what data we feel this is going to happen, right? We always come, why do you think that is happening? It's kind of a gut feeling. And this gut feeling is based on our own experience of the world and maybe the experience of what's packed in our DNA and etc. So we react to that with something that we can already comprehend. And I start to kind of see that with some LLMs when you ask a very good prompt and specific question, when you try to extract kind of an intuition out of this. And this is really interesting because then we can get to this kind of super predicting power that is coming from this large language model that has much larger experience of the world, which is not totally sure if you count on all our ancestors, kind of packing this way that we have to react to things, but it will build on more experience and be trained on larger amount of data of all these humans. And so kind of going to be able to build this superpower of intuition. And it can be super powerful if you look at people like Warren Buffett or this kind of people are kind of coming with this prediction that just keep happening. And sometimes they cannot really describe it. They just say, I like the product. Okay, amazing. That's a very good gut feeling. I think it's going to be a great product. Okay, thank you, but that's not the quant work. But being able to do that with an LLM is just amazing. And then we will be able to understand things thanks to the intuition, you can understand things from another point of view of statistics. That's kind of the causality standpoint. And we did some work on this as well with the Nobel laureate Guido Imbens and Marco Lopez de Prado. And we kind of understand causality, right? When we look at a problem, we say, okay, this is correlated, but that's, this event A didn't cause event B. It doesn't make any sense. They're not even in the same country. They cannot communicate. It's a pure statistical hazard that these two things move together. And being able to take statistics with something that has intuition will allow us to kind of decode that level, next level of statistics thing, which is going toward causality and etc. So a lot of good things. Do I think that we're going to get killed by this machine? I have no idea. We're kind of creating the next generation of humanity. Maybe we'll end up being this monkey looking at this machine, and it's going to look at us like we look at monkeys before us. And yeah, obviously what is going to happen then is that maybe there is a superior interest that will happen. So yeah, I don't know. Nobody knows, I think, what's going to happen in the next 2 years. It's already pretty hard to predict at the moment.
So humanity as the bootloader for AI is, yeah.
It is.
Right.
But every human is born with this, unique set of skills, talent, and DNA, and that training happened over millions of years. So that's pretty powerful as well. So we're still going to be hard to beat because every human comes with a new hardware, completely rewinded and completely recoded from bootstrap. Machine are running on the same GPU so far. So we still kind of this perfect machine for evolution, and I think the combination of human and algorithm are just the destination.
It's a fascinating project and really interesting because obviously whoever can, obviously AI is adding a ton of value, but there's big questions about who's going to capture or monetize this value. And the way you're describing Crunch DAO, it sounds like the hardworking machine learning engineers who really, who spend years and years developing this expertise maybe can monetize it in a way that's not captured by like some, CEO of a company who doesn't even know what they're talking about. Okay. Can I ask what's the current state of the project? Is it on testnet on a blockchain? Is it being developed for a blockchain? If people want to learn more about it or get involved,
Yeah. Thank you for asking. So we are on testnet at the moment. We run this private beta on testnet. For the first 2 years of the project, we were not even on chain. We were just, distributing USDC, but we were not on chain. And so finally now we are on testnet. We're building on Solana at the moment for obvious reason that our speed, for example, that's super important in what we're doing. And at the same time, we successfully passed an audit, and we are about to go on mainnet. We are running some tests with some of our major customers now, and we're going to be this private version of Crunch for maybe one more quarter until Q4 this year. Or if we are ready, we're going to just allow anyone to push some data on that. And many people are talking to us from people working on city planning, energy, logistic, DeFi, decision making for cities, and this kind of things. Just there is so many things. And that's kind of what to bring it to this level of a permissionless network, because we cannot, channel the quality of everything and bootstrapping all the subjects. So at the moment, the community will have to do this work for us.
I think taking your time with that makes sense. I actually think that a lot of projects, I think one lesson I've learned in crypto is many projects have DAOified too early. And then you get, some community challenges that you could, deal with later when you're more mature. So that seems like a really reasonable kind of path.
Thanks. And I really like more recently, and I think that's maybe because of the raising of the Deepin project with the decentralized physical infrastructure project that actually are like a real business, and they come with this real assumptions of we need a product, and then we launch kind of. I really like this sentence. I don't know who put that on Twitter recently. It was like product first, white paper second. And I kind of like that because when you are building a thing, it's very hard to come with the product at first in a white paper. You have literally no idea. No entrepreneurs in the history of entrepreneurship actually built what he believed he was about to build. And that's the same thing. I believe in the past that I would run the largest hedge fund on the planet and, I will never have any customer. That was kind of the first vision of Crunch. And then we ended up realizing that asset management is not scaling that well. And it actually not coming to the need of enterprise data software where you can work with this large corporation and, helping them in their work. This scale is much better and there's much more money for that. How to follow and how to get engaged. Follow us on Twitter. You can come on CrunchDAO.com. We are running space and office hours. Please join the Discord and you can also access all that.
Got it. Okay. Listen, I have like 17 more questions I want to ask you, but JF is telling me we have to wrap here for the interest of time. So that's just a sign that it's a really interesting product and project. Really cool stuff. Thank you, Jean, so much for joining us. We'll wrap here, and thank you everyone for listening. Hope you all have a great week. Hopefully see you next week. Take care. Bye.